Okay, not to be a bitch, but why is this new generation of teenagers, Gen Alpha, I think, why are they so rude?
Make it stop.
Skibbity Riz. Mewing. Boomer.
Oh my gosh.
Somewhere along the way, we decided that kids need to be scheduled from morning until night. And there's a lot of kids nowadays that are stressed, of like all different ages.
This is a problem. Kids who don't know how to emotionally regulate, don't understand consequences, don't understand proper boundaries.
You guys noticed recently that kids lack major social skills? I'm talking basic skills.
We have been having some behavioral issues with the kids. I'm starting to notice that pretty big screen addiction.
They live on their phones. They behave like addicts. They're super emotional, like the smallest thing sets them off.
How do you address an 8-year-old who's obsessed with video games? Very, very common. I hear this every single day.
You are interacting with them briefly in between hits of the internet, which is their real life.
If I were to ask you to recall childhood memories, you might describe something like running freely outdoors, climbing trees, playing for hours with neighborhood friends, dressing up, and biking home before sunset. For most kids, however, this version of childhood is an unfamiliar experience. Gen Alpha, born between 2010 and 2025, is experiencing a shift where the natural joy and curiosity that should define childhood has been unintentionally replaced by well-meaning adults. Millennial parents, while claiming to give their children autonomy and agency, are condemning them to lives that are overscheduled, overextended, and overstimulated. The great paradox of modern parenting is that despite the fact that we're spending more time and more money than ever before on children's futures, the results are falling short. We see kids are now going along life with no real hobbies, no social skills, no emotional regulation, no free time, and all while being sleep deprived. And as a millennial parent of Gen Alpha kids myself, I'm scared to follow suit, which is why we're here. So let's dive into it, how kids are spending too much time on the wrong things and are lacking the emotional intelligence and mental resilience needed to navigate beyond childhood, all under the watchful eye of loving parents. Before getting into the problems we're seeing with Gen Alpha, I want to discuss the significance of childhood, as these early years have a massive impact on how the rest of your life unfolds. Specifically, I want to focus in on the opportunity cost of childhood. If you don't know what an opportunity cost is, the New Oxford American Dictionary defines it as the loss of potential gains from other alternatives when one alternative is chosen. It's a term usually used for businesses where you have to take into account the cost of not doing something. An example of this would be a coffee shop owner choosing between opening a new location or staying with the one location that they have. While if they stayed with only one location, they could profit well, but that second location could have profited even more, and so by not opening it, they're losing out. Basically, the opportunity cost is the value of what you don't do and what you lose when you don't pick the next best thing. So when applying this to childhood, you can see that the way a child's time is allocated raises potential trade-offs. The reason the opportunity cost of childhood is so unique compared to adulthood is because for most kids, childhood is the only time in life where you have so much free time and mental energy to invest in yourself and who you're going to become. When we become adults, we get busy with our careers, bills, house maintenance, and all the other adult responsibilities. While children do still have some responsibility, they have vastly more time on their hands, as they should. This is their time for exploring, trying, failing, and learning, and all of those things lay the foundation for who you will become. Childhood is a specific age of development, a stage where the architecture of the brain is being developed. It is the early experiences that will dictate the adult the child will grow up to be, whether that child will grow up to be compassionate or confident, or if she will be a critical thinker or a risk taker. So if you miss out on this crucial window for self-discovery because you're caught up in other things that don't build character, then you're paying the price of the lost potential. An example of this is screen time, of course. While screen time for kids is not inherently bad, and a lot of parents use it, it's still the fact that for every hour a kid spends on their iPad is an hour that they're not spending in imaginative play, exploring the outdoors, or building social skills. It's not that one option is bad, it's that there's a better option that's lost. Another opportunity cost is from overscheduling your child. While it's great to be in organized sports and activities, there is a cost of taking away that room for boredom, creativity, or self-directed exploration. And the opportunity cost is something we can apply to parenting as well. Overprotecting your kids will, of course, keep them safe in the short term, but the cost is that it robs them of resilience, grit, and confidence. Scholars generally agree that the purpose of the extraordinarily long childhood and adolescence in our species is enculturation, acquiring all the skills and all the knowledge, all the customs and behaviors which you must know in order to be competent in the culture in which you live. And this is what I want to break down in today's video. The different ways children are being stifled in childhood and held back from reaching their full potential because they're spending too much time on activities that don't build them up to be fully functioning adults. On the note of freedoms and reaching your full potential, that doesn't just apply to childhood. As adults, we should have the freedom to access information, media, and perspectives from around the world without arbitrary digital walls standing in the way. I know for myself, when I'm researching for my videos, it's always the worst when I get blocked from a website because I'm in the wrong location. Even recently, I was looking to watch the documentary Surveyed for a video I'm working on, but it's only available on HBO and not available in Canada. But that's where NordVPN comes in, the sponsor of today's video. Whether you're trying to read a US article that's blocked in Canada or watch a documentary that's only available in the UK, NordVPN lets you change your virtual location with one single click. What's also great about NordVPN is that they offer so many cool features. Things like keeping your data protected even on sketchy public Wi-Fi at your local coffee shop, and their threat protection tool that blocks malware, intrusive ads, and malicious websites. And now they even have a password manager that keeps all your logins safe and organized. So if you would also like freedom online, sign up with the link in the description and receive an exclusive deal of a 2-year plan plus 4 extra months. That link is nordvpn.com/embers, and it's risk-free as well with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Another opportunity cost that isn't talked about enough is the cost of not having internet when traveling. Last month, we took a family trip to Palm Springs, and as a Canadian, I would have been stuck either without internet or paying an arm and a leg for roaming fees if I didn't have today's sponsor, Saily. Saily is an eSIM service app that offers affordable internet plans for over 180 different countries across the world. This means you can set it up all digitally without having to wait in the line at the airport to get a local SIM card. It's really as simple as downloading the app on either your Apple or Android device and following the instructions on the app to install the eSIM prior to your trip. Saily eSIM will then be activated instantly after landing, and you'll be able to easily connect to the local network. And it's affordable too. On our trip to Palm Springs, I got 5 gigabytes of data for only $13, which lasted the whole week. So if you have any travel plans coming up, you can save an exclusive 15% discount on Saily eSIM data plans. Just download the Saily app and use the code EMBERS at checkout. While it's a part of your job as a parent to help develop your child, many in the modern day are overdoing it, and we see this through the overscheduling of children's lives. We all want what's best for our kids, and with that, we want to give them either the opportunities that we had growing up or better, of course. But this often takes shape by filling every spare hour of our kids' lives with extracurriculars. Canadian children and youth ages 6 to 17 were surveyed, and the majority of children and youth, 86%, participated in at least one extracurricular activity. As well, in another survey, parents were asked how frequently their child participated in a sport on a weekly basis, and almost a quarter reported that their child participated 4 or more times a week, and an additional 38% reported 2 to 3 times a week.
How many of you come home from school, eat a snack, and run outside and play?
Like, nobody raised their hand that they go home and play.
Why not? What do you do after school instead?
Mondays I have hip-hop dance.
On Tuesdays, I have like this filming thing that my mom wants me to do, but I don't want to do it, but I still have to do it. And then on Wednesdays, I have basketball practice. Thursdays, I have set and design.
Are you guys tired all the time? It sounds like everyone's exhausted.
Yes.
So the kids are busy, to say the least. Because while a sport can take up only 1 or 2 nights a week, you have to look at the big picture of the kids' schedule, where they might also have piano lessons and their siblings' sports games to go to and after-school clubs or whatever else. It accumulates very quickly. But while these activities, again, are beneficial on their own, of course, the downside is that kids often miss out on the unstructured time that they need.
I think kids' sports are ruining families, marriages, and kids themselves. My son was in 2 sports in the spring, and we had something every single night of the week in terms of a practice, and then we had a practice or a game, and then we had games on the weekends as well, and we were exhausted. Everybody was exhausted, but this has gotten insane. My kids are 6 and 9, and at this level of competition, of expectation that we have of kids at this age, I think it's detrimental. I think it's harming more than it's helping. And I don't think burning yourselves to the ground, running kids around every single night and every single weekend is the answer.
Many parents today have this fear that if their child isn't achieving, then they're failing, with a total disregard of the benefits of the in-between time. In our capitalist world, it all comes down to capitalism. I swear every video has a capitalism theme. But we're taught that a meaningful life means winning every academic and professional race. But those achievements alone don't bring genuine happiness. The middle-class script says that a child's priorities must be school, college, and career, and anything else that doesn't fit into those categories are unnecessary or a waste of time. This 2023 survey shows a large majority of parents, 88%, said that it was very or extremely important for kids to be financially independent, which is a polite way of saying financially well off. But only 21% of parents thought it was important for kids to get married, and only 20% thought it was important for kids to have a child of their own. Now, I don't include this to say that everyone needs kids to be happy. That is not at all what I'm trying to get at, but that parents are more concerned about financial achievements than social or emotional achievements. And this path leads kids to focus on one trajectory, one storyline, which is that your career path will bring you happiness. And as anyone with a career can tell you, that alone will not fulfill you, at least for most people. As Alexander Kelmer said, the 3 grand essentials of happiness are something to do, someone to love, and something to hope for. And none of those things stand alone. And kids are now entering the workforce feeling lost because they've reached those life goals of getting the academics and getting the career, but find themselves directionless because they have no real hobbies, no social skills, and no personality. Obviously a generalized statement. But this is because they weren't given the opportunity to find what they like and what they don't like and invest in the things that resonate with them. And with that, kids nowadays are spending less time in unstructured play outdoors than ever before. In one generation in the UK and US, outdoor play has decreased by 71%. Instead, outdoor play is being replaced by more screen time with schools and parents prioritizing academic learning over play. What we're missing here is that children are getting their self-worth from academics and extracurricular achievements rather than from who they are. The simple joys of life are taken out when the fear of underachieving is driving the narrative of childhood. As said here, by cramming a child's life full of activities at 8 years of age, with little free time for reflection, with no quiet time for relaxing, no parent and child supper, this mom is sending an unintended message. What you do is more important than who you are. And that's something else that we're seeing is very common among children today, is that they aren't eating dinner as a family because they're out every evening for their sports and activities. Over the past 3 decades, family time at the dinner table and family conversation in general has declined by more than 30%. Families with children under the age 18 report having family dinners 3 to 4 times per week. 1/3 of families with 11 to 18-year-olds only eat 1 or 2 meals a week together. Only 1/4 eat 7 or more family meals per week. And I can't really fault them either, really. Like, we're just entering the sports age, and I can see how it can very quickly get out of hand. With only 1 child, you're committing to multiple nights a week for 1 sport, including some weekends. So of course, if you have more children, those nights fill up very fast. The problem is from the lack of acknowledging how important those family dinners are and making time for them. They've actually found that kids who eat dinner as a family turn out way healthier and way more well-rounded than kids who don't. Kids who have more meals with parents were less likely to have internalized problems, such as feeling sad, anxious, or lonely. They were less likely to have externalizing problems, such as fighting, skipping school, or stealing. They were more likely to help each other more, likely to be satisfied with their own life. So this isn't something that should just be brushed off as just for caloric intake. Having regular dinners together creates a strong family bond and one of the best indicators of a child's success in life. When they have the confidence and security that comes from their family, they're more likely to be able to handle the bumps and bruises that come from life. Also, I can't leave this section without emphasizing the benefits of academics and athletics either. I was an athlete, an all-right academic, and those were very valuable parts of my childhood, so I don't want to brush that off. It's just the overemphasis and overcommitment that we're talking about here. Again, the opportunity cost of choosing too much of one thing and not another. The other problem we're seeing is that it's not just the scheduled activities that are taking up all of our kids' time. Of course, there are plenty of other time-sucking activities that are not benefiting our children.
No sleep, bus, club, another club, another club.
And one of those things, of course, like I mentioned, is screens. Now, I don't want to beat this topic to death because I've talked about it many times before, that iPads are not good for children, but it still remains a fact that 43% of alphas own tablets before the age of 6, and 58% own a smartphone by 10. The thing I want to hone in on today, though, is the epidemic of video games, because while a lot of Gen Alpha are iPad kids, some of them are preteens and teenagers now, and are hooked onto their Roblox and Minecraft. It also was important for me to include this because I feel like girls get a lot of the hate for screen addiction because of their social media usage, but boys are just as bad, just in different media. Anyway, while most children's play used to be in the form of outdoor play, as we know, the modern American child is now more likely to spend their time in front of a screen. With technology deeply woven into every aspect of a child's life and permissive parents lacking the boundaries to limit screen time, Gen Alpha spends more time playing video games than any generation before. In the bustling chaos of modern life, our children, the Gen Z Alpha generation, often find solace in the digital realms of video games and streaming platforms. It's a landscape where entertainment knows no bounds, but where the lines between virtual and real blur with alarming frequency. In fact, video games are the primary source of entertainment for these young people. Each week, they spend 22% of their entertainment time playing video games. And this isn't surprising when their whole world is meshing together with technology, between social hangouts happening through cooperative video games, and even their schoolwork is now being conducted online, of course. 85% of US teens report playing video games, and 41% of them say that they play at least once a day. 4 in 10 identify as a gamer. And that is a lot, for kids. Half of them are playing every day. Does that not seem like a lot? Now, while there are definitely benefits to video games, we hear all the time about how it improves cognitive skills and enhances hand-eye coordination, there are drawbacks. This whole video is about drawbacks. And that comes from when they're spending so much of their time online.
Parents who have cut tablets out of their children's lives, essentially, what was that transition like? So we are considering doing this just for like the weekdays. We have been having some behavioral issues with the kids. Nothing terrible, but like I'm starting to notice that pretty big screen addiction.
And now it's to the point where some kids are getting their sense of self tied up with their proficiency in playing video games. And that's when the addiction starts to creep in. And it's a real problem when we have teachers online saying that kids can't focus in the classroom because they're used to their dopamine-full games. And some teachers are even having to adjust their curriculum to compensate for the lack of attention span. Not that academics are everything, of course.
I think that you guys don't know what's going on in education right now. That's fine. Like, how could you know unless you were working in it? But I think you need to know. So here is exactly what it's like right now working in public education. First of all, the kids have no ability to be bored whatsoever. They live on their phones and they're just fed a constant stream of dopamine from the minute their eyes wake up in the morning until they go to sleep at night. Because they're in a constant state of dopamine withdrawal at school, they behave like addicts. They're super emotional, like the smallest thing sets them off. And when you are standing in front of them trying to teach, they're vacant. They have no ability to tune in if your communication isn't packaged in short little clips or if it doesn't have like bright flashing lights. That's actually the way harder part for me than just the outright behaviors, is just being up at the front, talking to a group of kids who have their eyes open, they're looking at me, but they're not there. They're not there.
But what's missing here is the opportunity cost. By spending too much time playing video games, children aren't developing themselves as individuals, they're developing as gamers. What we need to be doing is diversifying childhood to still have video games, but also real life experiences and skill sets. Seems kind of crazy that we have to say that nowadays. As said here, part of the task of the parent is, and always has been, educating desire. Teaching your child to desire and enjoy things which are higher and better than cotton candy. Video games and social media are the cotton candy of popular culture today. I also find that this permissive parenting style brushes off the video game addiction as they're just kids and they'll get over it when they're older, but that's just not proven to be the case. The truth is that the younger you are when you become an addict, the harder it is to kick when you're older. Kids need to be grounded in the real world, not in the world of screens. So that's one drawback of video games, the loss of time that you could otherwise be developing your character. But the other problem with this screen addiction is that it's causing an epidemic of sleep as well. The rise of permissive parenting means that parents are hands-off when it comes to regulating screen time. They think that good parenting means letting your kids decide in almost all circumstances, including where parents should definitely be stepping in. American children are so busy trying to do so much between their organized sports, academics, and video game addictions that the majority of them are now sleep deprived. Among the high school seniors, fully 84% are getting less than 8 hours of sleep at night, and American kids are getting significantly less sleep compared to American kids 20 or 30 years ago. It's no secret that kids don't like sleep, and it's a tale as old as time that teenagers want to stay up late and sleep in. But kids have never had so many distractions to keep them awake and allow them to waste the night away. It's more common than ever for kids to stay up till 1 a.m., 2 a.m., or whatever time because they're glued to their screens. And no one's stopping them. The lack of sleep is what's doing irreparable damage to kids. For one, less sleep for kids is known to cause weight issues and obesity, partially because it disrupts their hormones, but also because they're less likely to be physically active the next day because they're tired. But equally as worrisome, sleep deprivation takes a toll on kids' performance in the classroom as well as their mental health.
Parents of middle schoolers and high schoolers, please take your kid's phone before they go to bed. These kids are tired, and not tired in a typical teenager way, not tired in a I'm bored of class way, tired in a I can't keep my eyes open because I was up till 3 a.m. scrolling. I had 2 kids in class today, and this one kid is telling me that his one friend, he's like, bro, this kid was texting me till 3 a.m. last night. I'm like, okay, well then you ignore him and you go to bed. I had this one kid, it may be the sleepiest kid on earth. And in between every single task, I kid you not, every single task, he will answer a question, head down, falls asleep every single time. And I'm like, hey, like, are you sleeping at home? And he's like, not really. What are you doing? Playing video games, going on TikTok, doing whatever.
As the U.S. Surgeon General has stated, studies have shown a relationship between excessive social media use and poor sleep quality, reduced sleep duration, sleep difficulties, and depression among youth. A sleep-deprived child will have trouble paying attention not because he has ADHD, but because he's sleep-deprived. Sleep deprivation mimics ADHD almost perfectly. The usual screening tools for ADHD, such as the Conners rating scales, cannot distinguish the child who is not paying attention because he's sleep deprived from the child who's not paying attention because he truly has ADHD. I've heard this from multiple teachers saying that the lack of sleep is killing education because kids don't have the capacity to learn when they're not awake in class. And in the last part of this section, which is arguably the saddest of them all, is that kids aren't reading anymore. Unfortunately, the reality now is that only 34% of 8 to 18-year-olds surveyed by the National Literacy Trust said that they enjoy reading in their spare time. This is the lowest level recorded by the charity since it began surveying children about their reading habits 19 years ago, representing an 8.8% drop point since last year. Isn't that so sad? But it all comes back to, again, the fact that children don't even have the opportunity to read when their lives are filled with their overscheduled extracurriculars mixed with their attention-addicting screens taking up all their time. I can imagine it being so hard as a kid to convince yourself to sit down and read a book when you can alternatively scroll TikTok and get a dopamine rush every 10 seconds. Children's reading enjoyment has fallen to its lowest level in almost 2 decades, with just 1 in 3 young people saying that they enjoy reading in their free time. And this, of course, has obvious drawbacks. We know reading is good for kids, but the benefits of increased vocabulary and mental well-being should not be understated. So where does this leave our children? Well, with a generation of fragile kids. The problem with overprotecting and over-controlling your children's lives is that it leaves them unprepared for life. According to the latest report from the CDC, 57% of American teen girls now report feeling persistently sad or hopeless, up from 36% in 2011. Among boys, 29% now report feeling persistently sad or hopeless, up from 21% in 2011. With all these things combined, we're finding children are left without a strong bond with their parents, they're getting their self-worth from their peers and online validation, and they're directionless in a world where they have no applicable skills or personal hobbies. And with that, we're seeing that Gen Alpha is not able to self-regulate at the capacity they should.
I'm a therapist and I primarily work with kids and teens, so I largely work with Gen Alpha kids, and I see exactly these types of behaviors all of the time. This is a problem. Kids who don't know how to emotionally regulate, don't understand consequences, don't understand proper boundaries. But the biggest issue is the parents. Many times they don't want to take accountability. They don't want to hear how they've contributed to the problem. And a lot of times when you try to bring it to their attention, they push back. They become really defensive and they don't want to listen to the reason. If you try to give them suggestions on things that they can implement at home, they either tell you that they've already done that, or they've already tried that, or it doesn't work, or blah, blah, blah. And it's a lot of resistance. And no, I'm not talking to amazing parents that are super dedicated and committed to helping not only their children, but themselves, and are very open and willing to change and figure out how they can be the best parent they can possibly be. I'm talking about the parents that don't want to recognize that they are 99.9% of the reason why their kids have these issues.
And it's gotten to the point where people are saying that Gen Alpha is the most hostile yet fragile generation yet. Kids today are more likely to shy away from challenges, give up in the face of discomfort, or ask for more reassurance or help from adults, because they haven't been given the space to build resilience.
Gen Alpha specifically has been exposed to instant gratification their entire lives, that they always need to look something up. They don't want to do the work, or they need to be doing 10 different things to be overstimulated and actually get stuff done and things like that. And a lot of Gen Alpha is having a really hard time talking, having a really hard time reading, having a really hard time doing things at school. They need to look it up. They don't want to do the work. They don't feel like doing anything.
While parents, most of the time, have good intentions, many of them are in the wrong places. Too much emphasis on any aspect of childhood creates an opportunity loss. And if we look at the long-term effects of overcommitment to academics, for example, the outlook isn't good. By doing so, kids end up building their entire self-worth around academic achievements, leaving them feeling insecure and vulnerable when they fall short.
Hey, basing your entire self-worth on your achievements is unsustainable. If the only way you feel good about yourself is when you achieve something, you're never going to be able to stop trying to achieve things. And you're going to burn out. Hi, it's me. I tried. And I burnt out. Nobody ever gave me the option of just feeling valuable because I am. So I'm putting the option out there for you. You're already valuable, bestie. All the other stuff is made up. You already have worth. Just sitting there. You're already valuable. Keep it up, cutie. I'm proud of you.
In fact, it's been studied that too much focus on academic lowers outcomes in life. Isn't that kind of crazy? Here we see when researchers tracked down high school students 11 years and 50 years after graduation, they found that attending a high-achieving high school was associated with lower educational and occupational achievement compared to students with the same household income who attended schools with average achievement profiles. This is because the only thing they know is academics. There's no real sense of self beyond a grade on a piece of paper. But the other problem that's coming out of all of this is a lack of social emotional development. And that brings us to the saddest point of this video, which is that Gen Alpha is not making friends. A lack of community is something that's already a huge problem in our modern world and is getting even worse with our kids. Among parents, 19% say that their child has either no friends or not enough friends, and 90% say that their child wants more friends but has roadblocks that keep that from happening. And there's a couple factors that come into play here. Yes, for one, children are not developing their social skills well enough, but they also don't get enough time to socialize with their full schedules. Even if these events are social activities, it doesn't allow the open-ended social environment that kids need to make real friends. Playing soccer with someone every Thursday night doesn't automatically make a deep connection. Real friendships come from one-on-one time and meaningful interactions.
Our generation is so based around social media and being online all the time that like we struggle with like having in-person conversations because mostly like people, when they have like a deep conversation with somebody, they would rather send like a really fat text message rather than like calling them or like meeting up with them or something. And most people have more confidence when they talk over like, you know, through social media or like texting. And people really don't like,
they hide behind their phones.
Exactly. And it's kind of like a struggle to like talk to people now because people rather talk online, and now we really don't have like social skills to like meet new people.
But the biggest player in this friendship problem is that kids are getting their social cups filled by parasocial relationships online. Whether that's a relationship with an influencer they follow, or even fellow gamers, which technically aren't parasocial relationships, but are definitely not the same thing as real in-person interactions.
Both of my kids play a lot of Fortnite, and they play a ton of these competitive video games with their buddies, right? And so it feels social, but I'm almost wondering if that's beneficial at their age to get some of that aggression out in a way that's healthy. Or am I just rationalizing?
And with Gen Alpha entering their teenage years now, there's also a rise in romantic relationships being replaced by online ones. Kids aren't meeting at the mall anymore. They're growing friendships and sometimes even crushes while playing Roblox, Fortnite, and Minecraft. For Gen Alpha, who often join these platforms as early as age 7 or 8, it's natural that their digital playgrounds are becoming their first dating arenas. Children are replacing their playground interactions with online ones because, for one, it's easier, 2, it feels safer, like you're not going to get embarrassed, but also they don't have the skill set to interact otherwise. And the more they fall into these online realms, the more they pull back from real life. A real life example of this is from the book The Collapse of Parenting, which I've been referencing all video. This was a really good book for any parents out there, highly recommend. But it's about a teenage boy. He lost interest in school, in most of his friends, and his sport. His circle of friends narrowed. He now spent most of his free time with a few other boys who shared interest in video games. He became defiant and disrespectful toward grown-ups, including his parents. If we change nothing else about our parenting approach, I wish that we at least would prioritize teaching social skills, because they're essential not just for success, but living a fulfilling life. A life online can only offer so much for so long. Even if you suck academically, which obviously is not the goal, but you can still get far in life with strong social skills. I remember a teacher in university once told me that all employers care about is someone that shows up on time and is nice to talk to. Obviously, there's more requirements to a job than that, but it emphasized that you really need to be a socially adept person to baseline get through life. But the whole point of this is that childhood isn't some separate chapter disconnected from adulthood. It's the foundation everything else is built on. We know that the two are deeply intertwined and that one feeds into the other, yet we give children no boundaries or skill sets to set them up for success in adulthood. A child with self-confidence, critical thinking skills, the ability to create their own play and solve their own problems will be far more prepared for adulthood than ones whose days are fully planned out, who's constantly being told what to do and only sees value from the grades that they're given at school. It all comes down to boundaries and freedoms in the right places. Thoughts. So despite shitting on Gen Alpha for the past probably 30 minutes by the time this is edited down, also excuse my language, but I want to clarify that I don't think that they're all doomed. We of course are talking about the average trends we see with kids, and my desire with videos like these is to help redirect parents when needed. I know that a lot of the things that I learned from making this video are applicable to my own parenting style. Like I've said, many of these parents are just trying to do their best and are overcorrecting from the parenting style that they grew up with. Also, this is the first generation to be fully immersed in technology, so of course there's going to be some hiccups. So you can tell me whether or not you think they're screwed. I personally cannot succumb to that because that means giving up on my own kids. But as we end off, I want to remind you to subscribe to my channel because actually I now put out 2 videos a month, if you didn't notice. At the start of this month, I switched over to working full-time on YouTube, which means that I get to double my output for you all. But that's all for today, and as a reminder, every generation has their struggles, and as of 2025, the newest generation, Gen Beta, began, and they won't have it easy either, so rest easy. Bye!
Alright kids, I hate to say it, but I think it's time we have to form an alliance with the millennials.
You must be truly desperate to come to us for help. You see, we as millennials, we left Gen X alone because we understood the order of things, and now that you feel the sands of time knocking at your door and Gen Alpha nipping at your heels, you come to us seeking refuge, and I'll leave you with a bit of millennial wisdom that we like to tell ourselves when things are hard, and it goes like this. Why chime in with a haven't you people ever heard of closing the goddamn door? No! It's much better to face these kinds of things with a sense of poise and rationality.